What is the first thought that comes to your mind when someone asks you about Brazil? The majority of the people immediately think about Rio, the Cross regime, or Carnival. But my connection with Brazil goes beyond to those beautiful places or the Portuguese language. I would say that Brazilian food is what makes me feel more Brazilian. My question focuses on why Brazilians hold a wrong narrative about the origin of their most important dishes. My research focuses on deconstructing this narrative, providing evidence of why Brazilians connect this dish with slavery history in Brazil. The purpose is to provide evidence that feijoada is originated from European dishes. Feijoada is my favorite food, and the most remarkable memory of cooking is helping my mom to cook feijoada. Food is the way I use to introduce my culture to others. When I moved to Denville, Kentucky to study at Center College, I always want to cook some Brazilian food for my friends, especially my favorite dish, feijoada, because it is considered the national Brazilian dish. It is the place that every Brazilian is proud to showcase, to embrace their culture and heritage. When I did it, it came out very successful. But the funniest part was to tell them the pronunciation of feijoada. What did you make today with me?
Feijoada.
The name by which we call it feijão means beans, which is the key ingredient of the Brazilian national dish. Feijoada, it is essentially bean stew mixed with beef and pork. It is known as the most popular dish from Brazil, but is also served in Angola, Mozambique, and Cape Verde, countries colonized by Portugal, with recipe variation in each country. Currently, many Brazilians believe that feijoada has a historical context on its creation due to the facts of slavery history. Therefore, this narrative is traditionally what Brazilians were taught about the origin of feijoada.
Hi there, my name is Rubia Fernandes and I am an immigrant from Brazil. I came to the United States when I was about 6 years old with my family, and a big cultural dish that they have there is feijoada. So, feijoada is this big stew of beans and various types of meat and basil, and it is a fairly common dish to have on a regular basis. And the origins of the dish is actually that it comes from slaves. So, slaves at the end of the day, at the end of the week, they would gather the parts of bones and meat that normally people wouldn't want to have. For example, like pig's feet and other things such as that, and they would cook it together in this really big pot and stew it over.
In Brazil, 1.7 million slaves were imported from Africa from 1700 to 1500. Brazil was the last country to abolish slavery, but the legacy of the colonial enslavement persists to the present day, and that has influenced the traditional dishes. The association with feijoada with the enslaved West African is a direct result of their subsistence on beans, rice, and corn. Due to the fact that the majority of the slaves in Brazil lived and worked in rice plantations, Brazilians strongly believe in the theory of the combination between rice and beans are also created by slaves. The truth is, feijoada and rice does not have any relationship with slaves, but with the restaurants frequented by the elite in Brazil. The Portuguese found in the beans all of the qualities that previous been associated with stewing cereal and grains. Without knowing the true story about feijoada, Brazilians connect the dish with the Black history. During Carnival, the schools that participate in Carnival events offer feijoada in their practice as the special meal. The action of samba always has to be connected with feijoada. Samba is the Brazilian musical genre and dance style from the northeastern state of Bahia. With its roots in Africa via the West African slave trade and African religious traditions. Feijoada has to be at the table of a Roda de Samba, which are events that developed the states of Bahia during the 17th century that involves music, dance, and poetry. Feijoada is in the table of the rich people. For example, the Emperor Dom Pedro I described a dish of beans covered as the favorite dish of Brazilians. The reality is, what is the slaves were able to eat was much worse than the rich variety of meat and bean stew identified as the Brazilian national dish. Historically, the Portuguese were the one who brought feijoada to Brazil and just adapted to the Brazilian ingredients. They have this plate called cozido, and it was inspired by the French dish Cassoulet. And so feijoada has this French style and was originated by the Portuguese cozido, the French Cassoulet, but also from the Spanish paella. That means the national dish first belonged to the rich people. There is a quote in Portuguese that says prato de casa grande não da senzala, meaning that the dish is from the big house but not from the house of the slaves. According to the sociologist Roberto Doria, the enslaved consumed beans, but the Portuguese were the one who consumed the most. However, there are several feijoada references in the 19th century elite. One of the earliest references of feijoada was being served in a restaurant in the Diário of Pernambuco, August 7th, in 1833, at this Hotel Teatro do Recife. At this time, Brazil was still enslaving people from Africa. The second reference is the Rio Express newspaper occurred on January 5th in 1849. Called O Jornal do Comércio. This reference just emphasized the inclusion of feijoada in the table of the rich people, contradicting the idea that the dish was originated from the slavery cuisine. It is important to highlight that in 1833 and 1849, enslaved people from Africa were still important to Brazil until the early 1850s. The conflict of the origin of feijoada has been around for many years, that many Brazilians have believed in this to be the actual history of feijoada. Many social movements were named by this dish, such as the Dogma Feijoada, which is a movement of directors and black professionals at the end of 1990s in the state of São Paulo. The purpose of this movement is to advocate the need for representation of black people in the Brazilian cinema. This dish was born out of the colonization of Europeans, but its impact on slavery history made this dish a controversial symbol in Brazilian history and culture. Therefore, movements like Dogma Feijoada use this dish as a wrong statement that falls into the false narrative. The European heritage of this dish tells us the painful story of colonization, not only reflecting the history of Brazil, but in many countries around the world. Feijoada will always be considered the symbol of the resistance and power, regardless of the original story. Feijoada is a source of the national pride for Brazilians, and it has impacts the history, culture, and identity of this nation. From the poorest communities to the richest places in Brazil, feijoada is proudly on the table of every citizen.